Hello everybody. Today I'm showing you how to make the bead top tassels that you've all been asking about. Please bear with me because it's the first time I've ever done a tutorial and I'm not very practiced at it. I'm going to try and recreate the one in the middle and show you how it's done. Okay, what you're going to need is a selection of lace, ribbons and fibres. I generally cut them to about 16 inches long. You're going to need a tassel top, or you can use a large bead cap, one that's going to be able to cover the wire work that we're going to do when we bunch the ribbons and threads together. You're going to need some pretty beads and some bead caps. Makes a nice effect if you have some, for the beaded part at the top of the tassel. And there's also going to be a loop that you can add a hanging dangle. You can make that into a chain like I have done here, or you can just attach a thread and knot charms and beads onto it. Really whatever your creativity can come up with, but I'll show you how I do it. The wire I use is 1mm. I can't remember what that is in gauge, but I'll put it in the comments below. You can use 0.8mm. It needs to be nice and bendy. As you work it, it will firm up. You're going to need a pair of pointy flat pliers, flat nose pliers, or chain nose I think they call them sometimes. You're going to need a pair of cutters, and you're going to need a pair of round nose pliers. I've got extra pliers that I find very useful because I've been making jewellery for 20 years. I've got some wire straighteners, got some more flat nose pliers, I've got some crimping pliers, I've got various one-step looping pliers in different sizes, the yellow one being the best one. These make marvellous loops, perfectly shaped, and I'll show you how that's done if you wanted to get a pair of these, or if you've got one and don't know how to use it. Okay, so I think that's everything I've shown you that you're going to need. You might need some head pins and some bits of thread if you wanted to do a thread dangle instead of a chain dangle. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to move the pliers out of the way for now. Right, it's pretty handy to have a couple of bulldog clips for getting all your threads together. You need to get them all together and clip them together one end. So that we can sort of keep them as even as possible. If they're not perfectly even at the end, it's easy just to trim your tassel to whatever length you want for the journal that it's going on. Another thing to do after you've trimmed it, if you're going to trim it, is to seal the ends of the ribbon using one of these gas lighters. Make sure you don't set fire to anything. It's easy done with ribbons. So if we gather up all the threads into a bundle, just bear with me. I've chosen quite a lot. I've chosen a mix of wool, yarn, there's eyelash yarn, There's ribbons. There's a little beady trim. You don't want anything excessively bulky. If you want to do a less bulky one, it's nice if all the threads and fibres will actually fit into the tassel top, as here. But if it doesn't, don't worry too much. As long as the tassel top covers the wire work at the top, it's going to look neat. Use your bulldog clips to clip it all together. You're going to need, I've got wire on a roll here, on a reel, because I do a lot. You're going to need to cut a length, probably, let's get the ruler, probably about 10 inches long, because it's much easier to work with wire if you've got a bit extra than you need. If you've got a bit that you've cut off, you can always turn it into a head pin or eye pin or whatever, so you don't waste it. So we've got our bundle, and we need to find the middle, or approximately the middle. So I'm folding it so that the ends are sort of roughly in alignment. Sort of twist it where the middle is and keep hold of it. The wire, you need to bend about a third of the way along the wire, so you've got a third this side and about 2/3 that side, and then hook your threads like that. So you've got your threads doubled up and the wire holding them there. And you need to cross the wires like that and give it a twist. You can use your hands or your pliers. You give it 2 twists, and that holds all your threads together, so you can take your bulldog clips off. Give it a bit of a shake. There we go, we've got all the threads and yarns and everything together there. You've got one long piece of wire. That's going to be the top. That's the part you bead. The short piece of wire we need to point downwards towards the bottom of the threads, and that's the part where you're going to be able to add your decorative dangle or your string or thread or whatever with charms on it, whatever you fancy. Okay, so that's keeping your threads all nice and tight. The next thing is you need to put your bead cap on and push it down as far as it will go, so that it's covering that twisted knot there in the wire. So we've got the bead cap, or the tassel top, whichever you want to call it. It's basically, it's a giant bead cap. Now I've selected some beads that go with the colour scheme. Let's get my ruler out of the way. I'm going to add, no, that one. That's a bead cap. And then one of my pink beads. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Another bead cap. So that bead's got matching bead caps on it. Now I'm going to put a larger bead cap, because the middle bead is a larger bead, and a matching one the other side. And then I'm going to repeat what I did for the first pink bead. Smaller bead cap, pink bead, smaller bead cap. Keep that pulled down so that the tassel top bead cap is tight against the ribbons, and this is where your pliers start coming in. Take your round nose pliers and put them at 90 degrees to the wire. Keep hold of that wire. You've got a few millimeters between the last bead cap and the actual plier, and the actual plier is sticking out approximately the same amount extended from that wire. So I don't know if you can see that very well. And what we do is we twist so that the wire is at a 90-degree angle, and then we move that wire around the plier, twist the plier, keep going so that the wire is at a 90-degree angle, and you've got a loop at the top. Sorry, I'm really not used to this, and I'm trying my best so that you can see what I'm doing. What you next do, twist the wire around in a spiral 2 or 3 times, depending on how much room you've left before the beads. Turn it a few times until it gets tight up against the beads, and the bead cap is tight up against your fibres and threads and ribbons. That's all nice and tight, there's no movement. And then with your cutters, clip off the excess bit of wire. Use your pointed pliers, because that end where you've cut is sharp, and just squeeze that so that it lies flat against the spiral that you've just made, and that stops fingers getting caught on it. If you've got crimping pliers, that's ideal, just to squash that sharp bit in. If you haven't, just use your needle nose pliers. I use my flat pliers just to straighten up that little loop, because sometimes it gets a bit wayward and sticks in a funny angle. And that's made your bead top tassel. Now if you remember, you've got a little bit of wire that was sticking down, and you may have to unbury it like I'm doing here, because it's got caught up all in the threads. Here we go, here it is. So I'm just going to move that up at a right angle for now. Now you've got some choices here. If you want to, you can add some beads onto here before you make a loop. We're going to have to make a loop so that we can hang our dangle, tassel, extra tassel, whatever you want to hang from it, charms on a chain. There's a lot of varieties of things that you can do there. I'm just going to leave that plain for now, and I'm going to make a loop. You can make the loop further down, or you can make it nearer to the tassel top. I'm going to make it fairly near to the tassel top. So I've got too much length here, so I'm going to cut a bit of length off. Leave myself probably about 1 inch. I'm going to use the round pliers. I'm going to grab the end of the wire and just turn the plier. You need to sort of twist your plier around and grab it again and keep turning until you've got a circle. It's not quite closed. So you've got a circle, and then what you need to do is to insert your plier again and then just give it about a 45-degree twist so that your circle is like, where are we? Where's the camera gone? There we go. You've got a circle there. I'm going to flatten that out with the flat pliers. And I've already made this dangle. I'll show you how to make a link in a minute. To attach that, I'm just going to twist that open a little bit. Never pull it apart that way because you'll distort your circle. Always front to back. Twist it that way a little bit. Pop that on there. Twist it back again. Make sure that loop is closed. If it's not, give it a bit of a wiggle or a squeeze from the side, and then you can bend your loop back down again so that it's within where the ribbons are, and there you go. That's one beaded top tassel with a decorative strand attached. I hope you could see everything I was doing there. If you've got any questions, always pop them below and I'll come back to you. Now, to show you how to make a dangle or a link, and I'll show you the one-step looper pliers in action. Just get some beads out. And some bead caps. Bead caps always add a very interesting bling value to the look of what you're making, I believe. I do use bead caps a lot. Now I'm going to make a link. That's a section with a loop at both ends. These are my one-step loopers. If you haven't got these, you can do the same with your round nose pliers. The one-step looper has got a little hole that you can push your wire through. Save wasting wire. I literally just stick the end where the hole is and squeeze, and that makes you a perfect loop. Sometimes it's a bit out of line, just give it a squeeze with your flat pliers, and then you can thread on whatever it is you fancy to have on your link. The links are what I used to make this chain, and I put a little flower charm on the bottom. So I put a bead cap on. Oops, bear with me. A smaller bead. Another bead cap. Then we're going for a bigger bead cap because the middle one's going to be a bigger bead. And another bead cap. Bear with me. I suffer from peripheral neuropathy, which means my fingers don't have the amount of feeling in them that they used to, so sometimes it's a bit fiddly twiddly and I end up dropping things. Smaller bead, another bead cap. So we've got a large bead with a large bead cap each side, and each side of that a smaller bead with smaller bead caps each side of those beads. I'm going to use the one-step looper again. I'm going to insert the other end of the wire through the hole, move the plier up until it's resting on the end bead cap and give it a squeeze, and I've got another perfect loop. Just flatten it out, and then we've got a pretty link. If you want a beaded charm on the bottom, then you use a head pin. Head pin is a pin with a flat, or sometimes you get ones with a ball already on the end of the wire. So this time I'm going to put a large bead cap and a large bead. Then I'm going to put a small bead cap. They don't always have to match. A small bead. And then I'm going to put a dome shape bead cap on the top of the small one. See if you can. There. And this time I'll show you using the round nose pliers, as you did before. Grab the wire. You've got a few millimeters of plier sticking out from the wire this way, and a few millimeters of wire before the bead cap. Bend your wire to a 90 degree. Bring the wire around the plier. Twist your plier around a bit. And I like to change hands, but that's just me. This time I'm going to grab the end, because we've got a short end. I'm going to grab it with the plier and pull it that way so that the wire is at 90 degree to the stem that's going through the beads. And then twist your wire around the stem a number of times until it's close to that end bead cap. Okay, so clip off the excess part as close as you can. To the beads. Squeeze that sharp end down where you've just cut. Flatten out your loop. Oh. I've just managed to flatten out my bead cap as well. That's happened before. Anyway, you get the idea. Those dome bead caps, you have to be careful not to catch them, which I've just done, and I've just managed to squash it completely, so I'll have to redo that one. But that's the technique that you use to make a little dangle that can go on the end of your chain. You can make a number of these and join them together to make a chain. Easy to join. All you do is get your pliers and twist on your loop. So your loop comes up, never stretch it out, bring it up, and then you can add the next link and just close it back up again. Just like that. So, I hope you managed to see what I was doing. Like I say, I've never done this before. I'd love to see what you have a go at. If you'd like to put any pictures up or anything, that would be great. If you've got any questions, I'll try to answer them as timely as I can. And thank you very much for watching. Thank you.